Hi, I'm Evan Burgoon. I'm the public program coordinator here at the Crocker Art Museum, and I'm here to discuss some of my favorite art here at the Crocker Art Museum. I chose these plates by Toshio Aoki for a couple reasons. I have many favorites in the museum, and like picking a darling is nay impossible. But I thought this one would be fun because I think it resonates with a lot of things that I love about art. And it's a really surprising piece. Like the Crocker Art Museum is, in my opinion, a very blink and you miss these really cool little stories, and it's always good to really pause and read plaques and stop when something sparks your curiosity. And this is one of those ones where it's a fairly recent acquisition, but when you look around the hallway that we're in right now, we're surrounded by these lovely, like beautiful California landscapes as we move towards the contemporary wing. And then you're hit with these plates. And when you look at the plates, they have these anthropomorphic like decor on them of kind of cartoony, manga-esque or anime-esque anthropomorphized vegetables and silverware, tea kettles. And they're very playful and cartoony. And as a cartoonist and a comic book lover and comic book author, it just really like speaks to me. It sparked my curiosity. Like, why are these plates here? What's going on with this? And when you start to learn about the artist, this is an artist who has immigrated to California probably sometime in the late 1800s. And then kind of rose to prominence, and not for plates, not for drawing on plates. He was a cartoonist. He did storytelling and drawing for newspapers at the times that he lived in both San Francisco and Los Angeles. He also threw these like really elaborate parties that apparently J.P. Morgan, and I have to imagine that maybe Amy Crocker showed up to a few of them. They were around the same time, so. Maybe there is like this historical Crocker connection. At first I was kind of like, this has to be a thing where Amy Crocker was like running up to the Judge Crocker and being like, we have to buy those plates for the museum. But they're a much more recent acquisition and gift to the museum. And I think the other thing that it's really exciting about it is this is an early California artist who is a Japanese immigrant. And it's in this context surrounded by art of people that aren't Japanese. So we're showcasing artwork. I think that at the time, this kind of artwork probably wasn't super celebrated, even though this artist rose to, I think, some really amazing heights. I think when you think about California history, there's a lot of stories of these immigrant tales. Especially Japanese Americans, this artist too was, again, not really well known for sort of drawing on plates. He worked for these newspapers. He had this one newspaper thing that he did where he took sort of the celebrities and high society of early California and Los Angeles elites and kind of Japaneseified them and wrote these really beautiful like stories and drawings, which I think you can Google and find, but he drew basically these little caricatures of high society as kind of Japanese figures. And it was a really beautiful way. I think he called it See Yourself in the Way That Aoki Sees You, I think was the title of the article. But towards later in life, I think he died around 1912. He was weirdly, I think, wanted to be seen more as like a fine artist instead of a cartoonist and like a storyteller. And I think that also speaks to like sometimes the cartooning and comic arts are not nearly always, throughout time, are not always seen as art. And that's another reason why I love seeing stuff like this in a museum context, is that it shows that art can be playful. It doesn't have to have these really sober themes, or it can show that there's delight out there. And I think obviously the bowl is probably the most rendered, but it's a big like stalk of bok choy, grabbing a crab out, and it just seems like it's also at the same time a recipe for what a stew that you might want to make for this bowl. Many of them kind of have those playfuls, but at first it looks all like it's vegetables, but there's teapots and creamer togs, there's roosters, and it's playing with so many different kind of ingredients, and none of them are anywhere near the same. Like, you don't see like reoccurring characters, but it does have this like, what was the fable that kind of like spurred or created this idea for, like the dish running away with the spoon fairy tale. Like, they all have these, little pocket stories where they're just very vibrant, animated, and they all have these like Japanese lanterns on them too. Like on this side too, it almost looks like they're playing golf on one. I think where it is in the museum just really creates a darling moment of palate cleanser. You're seeing all of this really lovely California landscapes, and then it's like, there's these plates. What are these about? Personally, as a cartoonist myself, it's really interesting to kind of see yourself in this kind of spirit. Like, when he immigrated over, he started to do cartooning for a department store. When I really started to do cartooning, I was doing signs and cartooning for Trader Joe's. It's just weird how our lives kind of create these like interesting things. And that's another really fun thing about any art in an art museum, is when you can start to see your shared humanity reflected back at you. It's really a joyful thing and really at what's at the heart of art, which is connecting our shared experiences of what it's like to be a human on this earth, and so temporarily, and yet it resonates throughout time. So it's a really beautiful set of things, and I think it's well worth the stop to just look at all of these things. They're so fun, they're so delightful. I really think the connection to California, like, that everybody belongs to California, everybody belongs in California no matter how you got here. I just love that we have these pieces, and that they kind of also invite us to the contemporary wing of the museum, which I think is also a really delightful thing, is that since the advent of the Crocker Art Museum, they were collecting art in their contemporary times, and this is another reflection of how this museum has always been in the corner of artists since its founding, and contemporary artists, and trying to patron them, and trying to elevate them, and trying to platform them. And it's a really beautiful, unique way of seeing that. It's surprising.